Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Something to Do with Pete and Will. We promise it's something to do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's Something to Do. We promise it's something to do. Today I've got a wonderful friend of mine, Joel Freeman. And Joel, I met, he was a chaplain when I worked for the Bullets and the Wizards. And he was with them for decades before I ever got there, and was such an amazing person that he and I developed a friendship there. And as we have a discussion about how that developed and the things that he's accomplished and done as a very prolific writer and author and creator, it's been nothing but an absolute honor to have you as a friend. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me about all those things that you've accomplished and what you've done for me. Because in those early days when we'd go, because I don't know that many people know that there was a little chapel for the players, and they could decide or not decide to go in before a game. But it was both sides of the team that would walk in, and you would see every player. And you allowed me to come in and be a part of that, which I thought was really just is so valuable. And I really appreciate that. And then not to mention all the wonderful things you've accomplished over the years and all the people that you've spent time developing and just honoring. And it's really been just a wonderful relationship. And thank you for doing this. Joel Freeman.
Thank you, Pete.
Yeah,
I'm here on the East Coast. You're on the West Coast, and somehow this is happening. So this is wonderful.
exactly. Yeah. Thank goodness for Zoom
Yeah,
and ring lights.
yeah. By the way, everything you talked about, I call that the resume obituary type stuff. So keeps it all in perspective.
Well, but yeah, there's a lot to unpack in all of that, obviously, because there's we our relationship and all the things. There was a time at E that I hired Joel to come out, and he did it at a fraction of what he's worth to come out and do that for me, to talk to some guys that needed a boost, and he did it, and that was so magical, and I appreciated that so much.
I really enjoyed that. It's just, really meant a lot to me. I think a couple of years later, I came back to E Entertainment. I mean, I was
Mm.
somewhere else, but I just dropped by. I don't think you were even in the building at the time. I think you were out on a shoot. And I went down to the locker room and I saw that the code of conduct that we created, that the guys, a lot of folks had put it up on their lockers, and that meant a lot to me to see, that what we did
That's a big deal. I don't know that I knew that you did that. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll start at the inception. So when I was working with the Bullets, and then they became the Wizards, um, yeah, Joel was a very big part of my day there, because I'd go in and be a part of what you were doing, and you and I would have conversations about life and things like that. It was pretty amazing, but it was also amazing to see you with Michael Jordan to Muggsy Bogues to, all these. I mean, you can name every NBA player for 25 years at the beginning. I think when you started there, they were still smoking on the bench.
Yeah, it started in the 78-79 season.
Yeah.
And how that started was a good friend of mine was working for the Celtics. And his name is Bill, and Kevin Porter and Alvin Hayes, they came out to the pregame chapel. And so what happened is they said at the end, they said, gosh, we'd like to have something like this down here in the DC area. Now this is all pre-digital, so there's no cell phones, it's just a home phone. So
Yeah.
my friend Bill says, oh man, I know a guy. He says, I'll put you in touch with him. So about 2 to 3 weeks later, I'm having lunch with Kevin Porter. And probably what served me very well is I'm from a small town in Alberta, Canada, with 2,000 people, 9 ice hockey rinks. We had no TV in our home. And so I was from late October to early April. I was on the ice at minimum 2 hours a day. And where I come from, sissies wear figure skates and play basketball. And to this day, I've never worn figure skates. And the basketball part of it is that I was in awe of people like Boom Boom Jeffrion and some of these hockey players, Stan Mikita, Gordie Howe, and of course later on Bobby Hull and these different players. And so when I came to basketball, I mean, I knew that most of the guys are pretty tall, but I didn't really have any heroes in basketball. So that probably served me well. It's like Kevin Porter. Okay, here's Kevin Porter.
Mm-hmm.
And so we sat down, had lunch, and he somehow liked me. I liked him. And he said, let's get this thing started. And then I met with Bob Ferry, who is the general manager. And Bob was looking at me with, I call it the hairy eyeball. He was not given to a whole lot of expression of emotion. He was kind of stoic in many ways until you got to know him. And he had a great sense of humor, a lot of laughter, and very kind of a gregarious type of individual. But when he was checking me out, these guys, their position in life attracts a lot of insincere people. And so he's looking at me, and he told me later when we were on a flight down to Dallas, Texas, happened to be on the same flight. We spent 2.5 hours. We were asking each other the question, what were you thinking? What were you feeling back then? Because I was one of the first 2 or 3 chaplains in the history of the game. And so he had told me later that he was afraid of me. Here I was a 25-year-old kid. I looked 15 at the time and had no mentor. And it was just kind of one of those things where I'm just...
you look 35 now.
And so what happened is that he told me he put his ear up to the door because it was, you remember the old Cap Center. That's
Mm-hmm.
where we had many of our meetings in the room right next to the locker room where they worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couch in there, I think, or something like that. And so we'd set up some chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he put his ear up to the door about 5-6 times, and he was listening. So if I said anything squirrely, he was going to come in, bust in, grab me by the scruff of the neck, and then haul me. You remember the old saddle-shaped dome of the Cap Center? Those big long stairs going up.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have hauled me up those stairs and thrown me out, never to return.
Yeah.
But he said he liked what I was saying. So, I wasn't saying anything weird, I guess. He really seemed to enjoy it.
Well, that's right. I guess our relationship started in, was it Landover?
Yeah. The old Caps.
Because I worked for the Caps as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would travel with them and what was interesting, and I think I've talked about this before, is you travel with the NBA players, and they're making so much money that they're just, it's a different type of person. I mean, they're getting $107 million contract or something, whatever it is. But then you travel with the, hockey players, and they're like, well, I'd be pouring concrete if this wasn't happening. So I just hung out with them because, they're
And Mike Gartner back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do hockey seminars with him. We would go out and we'd get a rink and then bring a bunch of kids in and parents all around and we'd do stuff together.
It's amazing the work that you've done, excuse me, the that you've done for Black Lives Matter and things like that to kind of take a little bit of a left turn. Um, but the anywho, so the Black Lives Matter aspect of what you've really dedicated a lot of your life to, and so many books, which I have here, um, has just been extremely valuable, I think, to so many people. And it's and I don't want to say it's ironic, but the fact that you're the person that has done so much in that community is really amazing.
Well, actually, what happened is, currently I have 7 books that are in 28 languages in all, and there's a story behind every one of them. But when I got started, yeah, you got a few of them right there.
Well, I've got more than a few.
Yeah, God is not fair, and Kingdom Zoology, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I used a lot of those books because, as you know better than most, when you're working in the NBA with professional athletes, a 20-second conversation is a long conversation, and because they're moving, to the bus or coming off the bus, or if it's the other team coming in, it's just a whole lot going on. And so what I would do is I would give them a copy of one of my books, put my home phone number in there, and it was not, it would happen all the time where on a Friday night game, they'd be a visiting team player might be reading the book, and then on the plane, and then call me Saturday morning. Friday night game, Saturday morning, we're talking on the phone, maybe with his spouse next to him.
Hmm.
And so that way they could put their finger in my pulse for 3 or 4 hours and get a sense of who I was in terms of my character and all the rest. And then when we talk, we could go real deep, real fast, because the trust level was up there. So it just kind of fascinating. Then we got into the Black history, and that started because most of the players, a lot of the players, are of African descent, and they're looking at me, like I'm supposed to spill my guts to that guy. Are you kidding me? And then so they started asking questions that were germane to what we were there for. And they wanted to know, what did Jesus look like, and what part did people of African
Well,
descent
they're
play?
just they're picking you apart because they
Oh
want to
yeah,
know
yeah.
exactly like who, why is this very calm person who's not familiar to me telling me about where I came from, you know?
Yeah, in this book right here, Return to Glory,
Uh
that
huh.
book in film version, that became is forward by Julius Irving. Dr. J did the forward
Mm-hmm.
for it, and this book was used quite a bit because a lot of guys are very interested in kind of the view of Afrocentrism versus Eurocentrism, and how does that relate to biblical and extra biblical history and all the rest. And that's really what got me started in all of this, is researching for that book and co-writing it with another author, an African American author. And that's what got a whole lot of these conversations going.
Well, and I was listening to you on you were on well, you've been on television a lot discussing this stuff, but the Freeman Institute, and kind of talking about all the artifacts that you have and things that are really valuable to not only the community but to your story as you describe, you know. So it gives so much validation to everything that you're writing about because it's
I'll show you this, Peter. This is a talking stick from the mid 1800s.
Uh-huh.
It was used by the Chokwe tribe in Angola region, and you see he's got a musical instrument there, and that's
Mm-hmm.
we know that as a thumb piano, the calypso. I don't know what they call it.
That's cool.
And so he's got this thumb piano, and this is from the mid 1800s. And so I had one historian take a look at it, and she said that the reason why he had a musical instrument is because music is transcendent, and he was able to connect with younger and older generation alike, and that he was relevant to the community. And then anytime in a tribal
Yeah.
council, if the chief or the king handed this to somebody, whoever was holding it would have the authority to speak, and everyone else had the authority to listen. And so this is just an example of one of the items, over 3,000 items. The oldest piece dates back to 1553. I've done two exhibits at the UN. Had over 1 million people show up. Three at the White House, two at the Clinton Presidential Library, a whole bunch at DOJ, uh, NIH, and Secret
But you've
Service, all
yeah.
kinds of places. It's
You
crazy.
you've done yeah. You've done amazing things. You've met kings and queens and everything. It's really incredible what you've accomplished.
Well, that's really being in the NBA. That's what really got me started. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and one of the gifts that was handed me, and I'm sure it was handed to you too, is I'm not in awe of people. Probably the only person who was alive in the last 20, 30 years that would have tongue-tied me was Nelson Mandela, if I was in his presence, because here's a man that went through prison, and that yet there's no bitterness about
Mm-hmm.
him. And then he elegantly left the presidency when he could have been president for life, and he gave an example to every dictator in the world. This is how you handle it, power. And but just being in the NBA, being around a lot of wealth and power, it just kind of burned out of me. The whole idea of being impressed. Uh, you
That's
know,
interesting you
and I'm
say
not
that.
cynical. I'm not
Yeah.
cynical about people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you know, it's kind of
Yeah.
meeting everybody on the same level.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, doing what I've done, I've met everybody. And so I've had to,
You're the same for you. You've been
yeah.
behind the camera and saying, "No, to
Mm-hmm.
turn your head this way," or get the lighting just right.
Mm-hmm. And, and, directing things that, you know, people would look at and they're like, that's incredible that you're doing that. But in that moment, that can't be a thing because
No,
there's something that has to be accomplished.
and they'll
And
pick up on it. They got a special radar or sonar,
that's
whatever it is.
exactly right.
And if
Yeah.
they see you as a fan, they'll kind of adjust and handle you in that manner.
And it
But
changes the entire dynamic.
it certainly
So you,
does.
you have to walk in just, this is what we're doing. We're in
Yeah,
this together. Let's go for it.
let's make it happen.
Yeah. And that's a powerful thing to have learned.
That's a gift.
And
And that's something you can't go to a seminar or read a book
mm-mm,
about it or hear someone talk about it. It's something you just
right.
have to go through it and have all that, the intimidation factor, all that burned out of you. And it takes probably 4 years for that to happen.
Well, that's the thing. So like, well, here, like this is, I, I'm not name dropping, but Leonardo DiCaprio is walking in the room, or some major celebrity is walking in the room, and I'm in charge of what's going to end up happening here. I have to let him know he's in safe hands.
That's right. Exactly.
Because the second he feels like he's not, then we're not going to get what we need.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Very true. It's a gift, I think, that is given. Uh, the intimidation factor and all that stuff, getting it burned out, and then it kind of releases you to, when I talk with young guys who are wanting to become chaplains or character coaches, whatever you want to call them, I tell them, I say the first year, be prepared and don't be freaked out about it, but be prepared. You're going to be in awe. Oh, there's whoever walking in the room,
Sure.
I said, the guys will smell it. They'll smoke it out. They'll handle it. I said, and you got to go through it. And then the second year, what's going to happen is you're going to develop a bad attitude because you're going to be traveling 45 minutes one way, deal with traffic to get there. It's a volunteer position. And then no one shows up. And you say, what the HE double hockey sticks is this all about?
Right.
And these are a bunch of prima donnas. They don't realize what I'm giving up to do this. And then through the second season into the third season, it bleeds over the third season, a bad attitude develops. And then by the end of the third season, that's when the magic starts happening. That's when things start really connecting with the players.
Well, and you were so good. I think because of your personality. I mean, it comes across just in this conversation that you're just a very calming source of information. Meaning, the way that you come across is, I'm not selling you anything. It's You're here on your own volition, and we're going to have a conversation if you want to have a conversation. And if you don't, I'm not tracking you down or anything like that. I'm here.
Yes.
So if you want to talk, let's talk.
Yeah, you're talking about the Black History thing. I got something I'll show you, and I
Yes,
think you have
please.
a copy of it too.
Oh yeah, hang on.
It's,
I got one. I got.
the magnum opus, they call it. And this one right here weighs 5.5 pounds. It took 2.5 years to create.
Yeah.
It's 1,248 pages, over 2,500 images throughout, and then you see QR codes. Very tech savvy. And this is now like an educational earthquake, Pete, all across the country. We have right now there's 15,000 school districts. We have 80 school districts. We just launched 80 school districts already, like Denver and Chicago and New York City, St. Louis, and Houston, a whole bunch of places that are adopting this. And we call it our love letter to the world. And Dr. Milton, he's Black.
It's like your thesis, essentially, yeah.
It's that on steroids. Can you imagine, Pete? Setting everything aside for 2.5 years. I had a very successful company where I was traveling all around the world, 55 plus countries, working with heads of state. I put that all on the shelf for 2.5 years, 12 to 16-hour days, no guarantees that anything is going to be happening afterwards. And this is the result. And it just, man, I'm still coming out of the rabbit hole. Still wobbling around. I just
realized that it is 5 pounds.
Yeah. Don't forget the other half. 5.5 pounds.
I need to work out. I think I just pulled something.
That's right. It's a good doorstop.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful book. All the stuff that you've written is just spectacular, and the fact that you put so much energy into a wonderful community of people that. And the way that you describe it is really, I mean, it's very unique.
But you know what?
And I think it's unique for them to hear it from you.
Well, it's one thing, growing up in Canada, when I left home, I hitchhiked by 5,000 or 6,000 miles around North America, long-haired hippie, dope smoking fool, and I hitchhiked around for probably close to 2 years. So when I came to Maine, I had a change that took place in my life. I signed up for Bible school. Then 7 years later, I have a picture of myself as a long-haired hippie. 7 years later, I became one of the first chaplains in history of the NBA and survived 6 coaching changes, 3 GM changes, and 20 seasons. And I had to really.
You made it through Wes Unseld.
Oh yeah. As a player, I started when he was a player. He went to GM, and then to coach, back to GM, and he was tough.
He didn't mess around. He would come over to me and just take stuff.
I remember one time. I'll tell you this story. I don't tell.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think the way my sentence came across is not the way I wanted it to. The fact that you're spending so much time and being so special with something that people might not think that you would be special and spend that much time with is, I think, very valuable.
Well, Wes was an incredible human being. When I think of the word integrity and
Mm-hmm.
character
Mm-hmm.
matching together, his wife, his father-in-law, Herschel Martin, I
Mm-hmm.
got to know him very well. And I'll tell you a quick story is that Wes, I'd interviewed him for radio and we'd done a bunch of other stuff together. Well, he got a thing in his bee in his bonnet, so to speak. He got a thing in his head that he didn't want me going in the locker room before the game. He says, this is a matchup, and I don't want you going in the visitor locker room or the home locker room before the game to tell the players about what you're doing. And I said, well, Wes, that's going to be a challenge, but in any ways that you think we can do that, okay, we'll make it happen. You're the boss.
You're like, well, I'm kind of trying to get people, if they want to come in a prayer meeting real quick.
Yeah. So what happened is Calbert Cheney had something that he wanted to show
Yeah.
me, and so I was standing at the very door of the locker room, and I think might even had one foot on the threshold of the locker room. I didn't go in though, but I was right there. And Wes came around the corner, and he was pissed. I'm telling you, I mean, he's what 6'8", and he's towering over me, saying, "I told you I never wanted you in the locker room, and here you are in the locker room. What are you doing here?" And
Yeah.
so and I just kind of looked at him, going, "Wow, this is surreal. This is crazy to have Wes Unseld yelling at me because it was out of character for him in this manner." So after the game, I don't know what got into my head, but I went into his office and I had knocked on the door and I said, "Wes, do you have a moment to talk?" And I said, "Wes, what happened? I want to talk about what happened at the locker room." I says, I was not going in the locker room. I said, "But the way you handled that," I said, "Wes, you are better than that." He looked at me like, "What? Who are you to tell me that?" I said, "You're better than that. Furthermore," I said, "you and I have to present a united front to the players." I said, "I don't care if you want to yell at me or not, but do it in this office or behind closed doors. So when we come out of the room, we're connected at the hip with the players." You know
Right.
what? He got up, he came over and shook my hand and gave me a hug. And from that time on, it was like a collegiality, a respect that he had for me, or whatever. I always had a great respect for him, but there's something that happened in our relationship that was a bond that couldn't be broken.
That's amazing. And over the years, you have situations like that where you have to say, "Listen, the way you just handled that was very wrong." And because I've hired a lot of people and done a lot of different things, I have had to say, "This is what you're doing." But you always do it behind closed doors. There was a producer I was working with at one point, and he wasn't handling things very well. And I said, "Hey, can I talk to you outside here real quick?" And so I got him outside, and I said, "What are you doing? Stop! You're embarrassing yourself and the people that we're working with.
Oh man.
Stop it." He's like, "Well, what am I supposed to?" I was like, "Stop doing that. That's what you're supposed to do. Be respectful of what we're doing. Be respectful of the people that we're talking to. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's, we'll figure that out in the wash. But in the moment, be respectful. Say things that are respectful to each person. So if you're not acting like that, I'm going to take you out of this room." Like, don't do that. And he didn't work there very long. But
Oh man.
yeah,
That's the stuff you have to do. And
you
if you
have
do,
to. I mean, what are you going to
yeah.
do? Listen, I hired you to come out and talk to our guys. Like, listen, you got, come on. You were such an amazing resource to
Oh,
to be able to do that. That
well, it's
was
my privilege. I really enjoyed it.
yeah. It that was it was a big deal.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you got an Emmy back working with the Bullets, right?
Well, I got three.
Three
So
Emmy.
I got one with the Capitals, one with the Bullets, um, or two with the Bullets. I can't remember. I just have
And
the
what was the
certificates.
criterion? How did they go about that? Because
Well,
that's a pretty big
so
deal in my mind.
yeah, I worked for Base Productions, and
Hmm.
so Base was just three of us at that time. It was
Oh wow.
John Brinkus, who now has gone on to be a on air personality for ESPN. Um, Mickey Stern and I,
Hmm.
and then we had an editor and things like that. But we did uh, Capitals Face Off and Bullets Jam Session.
I remember that. Yeah.
That was on NBC.
Yes.
So that's the whole reason I was there. That's so I would go in and do an interview, and most of the time I go in by myself, and
Hmm.
so I just set up the camera, set up the lights,
Yeah.
set up a second camera, and then do the interview. So
Wow.
the one that I remember, it's the second time I brought him up, but is Muggsy Bogues came in, and it's just me. So I hit everything. I'm asking him questions about the game, and then what I would do is break everything down and go out onto the court, and then shoot the person that I had just interviewed.
That's great.
Yeah. So in that time, Jordan was still playing back then, and things like that. And then obviously he became a bigger part of the uh, Wizards later.
Hmm. That's
But
great.
yeah, I mean, you and I've met every basketball player. I mean, you've met more than I have.
It's pretty much anyone from 78
Yeah,
to 98.
yeah.
There's had some type of interaction.
Well, and my thing was '98, same thing. So in
Yeah.
'98, when they locked down,
Hmm.
I was like, I'm moving to LA. Moved
Yeah.
out here, started working, and never stopped.
And there's a lot of people like Mike Tyson would show up and be in the back area, and some
Yes.
WWE wrestlers or whatever, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if WWE was the right one, WWF, but some of the big old wrestlers were there, and they do these. They'd be at the Cap Center that next evening, so they would put on a show that night to all the fans to come on out the next night.
Yeah.
So they'd be walking around. It's pretty crazy, pretty incredible experience.
Brought to you by
What was your takeaway?
Liquid Death.
Liquid death.
No, it's water.
Oh, it is.
Literally, yeah, it's just water. Uh, it's from the Alps,
Oh, wow.
apparently. But all of our sponsors come at the end. So everybody just hang out until the end. And we have no sponsors because nobody watches this. But Liquid Death.
Oh, good.
It's funny. It's the even on the box it says, "Don't be scared. It's just water."
I'd have thought they'd come from Death Valley or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. My takeaway, it was interesting. So because I was young,
Yeah.
I was really young. So a lot of times, I think because of how I sound or whatever it may be, I had to prove to people my age because I'd say I'm 20 or I'm 21. They're like, No, you're not. You're on the floor. You just talked to all these. What are you talking about?" And you know, because of Base Productions, I was able to, and I give them credit. They put me in a position to start my career and move pretty quickly.
And that was a young age, wasn't it, for you? Wow.
Yeah, I was very young, and so the people that I would meet, I'd say I'm 20 or I can't remember exactly. I mean, it was 1996. Geez, I'm 45 now, so I'm not good at math. You
That's,
guys
that's,
do. We'll let the audience do the math on that. But the point is that
Put in the comment
yeah,
section.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Subscribe and comment, please. This thing needs all the help it can get. But so people were constantly just asking me, how old are you?
Hmm.
And they thought I was in my 30s or something. And I'm like, no, I'm 19, 20. I'm
Sheesh.
you know, and but I think similar to you, we had something in us that was just, I'm moving towards something,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
not going to let, and like you had said before, the celebrity aspect of it or all that stuff, it's not going to get in the way. I,
No.
that's going to be part of what's going to be for me.
And that's what served you working with E-Entertainment, working with a lot of celebrities. And,
Yeah.
it's,
Hmm.
it's, it's moving from one aspect of life to a whole nother. But you learn what you learned from the first phase really helped you probably in the second level
Yeah.
of E-Entertainment.
Yeah. So E, and then Universal. I was at
Hmm.
Universal Studios there. Well, I guess I kind of still am. Who knows? The pandemic has canceled everything, so we'll see what happens there. But they were wonderful to me, and I 22 years with them is that's a big deal.
That's a
And
huge deal.
yeah, and so um, it's interesting. We had a like one of those interviews, like, hey, everything's canceled. Like, what are we gonna do? And I
Hmm.
always said, because people will get all upset or yell or say things. Uh, and I said, no, thank you. So, are you kidding? This is wonderful. You guys have, provided me with a home and all sorts of wonderful things, and I'm here. I'm dressed and ready.
Yeah,
So, when everything comes back, I'm ready.
that's great.
Yeah. So,
Well, I brought some
we're
things.
still waiting for things to come back.
Brought some things. This is
Oh yeah.
you can see that very well, but this is the ring from the championship when the Bullets won. So you got the Freeman, got my initials inside, and it just
That's
big old
insane that you
heavy
got that.
ring. I know, big old heavy ring. I don't wear it very often, but in fact, never. What I
Yeah.
do when I
We're,
speak many times nowadays, I'll bring it with me
sure.
and then allow someone in the audience to have the honor to wear it. And I
Sure.
keep my eyes on you. Make sure you don't run out of the hall.
Yeah. Well, those things are so impossible. So that's actually why I brought out the Emmy or
Yeah.
whatever, because it's those kinds of things that they matter, at least in my mind, more than the college degree and things like that, because you've just earned it.
You see that the Schick they gave out the Schick Washington Bullets. You see that Washington Bullets right there,
Oh
and then
yeah.
the watch, the
Yeah,
Hardy's
yeah,
watch, the Bullets watch.
yeah. I have the notebook,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I
in
do
the,
too. I
yeah,
do too.
those things are great.
And then the old album, the Fat Lady Sings for the Bullets. You got Wes Unseld, on the cover,
Yeah.
and yeah, this is
Oh,
all the old folks on. I don't know if that comes through very clear.
yeah, it does. Yeah,
Abe
for sure.
Poland. Yeah, Abe was very, very
A-
kind to me. There,
Abe,
there,
hmm Abe went. Let's see. He was much older.
there's Abe right there. That was
Yeah.
me. It was Bob Ferry. I mean,
What?
yeah, it's Bob Ferry.
Oh, I thought you said that was you.
No, that's Bob Ferry. No,
Oh,
no, no,
okay.
that's not me. I'm not anywhere on that pic in any of those pictures.
No, Abe was great. Like
Yeah,
he was just just an
very, very
amazing guy.
behind the scenes. He was. I remember once when Michael was coming to town, someone called me and said, a young kid is going to be dead. She's going to be dead in about 3 weeks, and her whole desire is to meet Michael Jordan before she dies.
Yeah.
And so I had the young girl had a disease that one of Abe Poland's kids had experienced.
Hmm.
And so I went to the regular route of, hey, can Michael, meet with this young kid? And everyone said, no, 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 no. So I went to Abe and I said, Abe, I'm going to move heaven and earth for this young kid to meet Michael. And he did. He made a few phone calls and boom, that night, that kid had about 120 to 160 seconds with Michael Jordan. It was
That's
quite amazing to
fantastic.
watch the parents and everything. This was the kind of stuff. This is from '86. This was the Bullets, press
Roster?
release, roster, what was going to happen, probable startup lineup, tonight's game against Philadelphia. You got different games going on that evening. This is against the Boston Celtics, who the Celtics were putting up, who the Bullets were putting up. You got Ennis Watley and Moses Malone over here with Robert Parrish, and you see Greg Kite and Bill Walton and Larry
Larry
Bird
Bird.
and McHale.
Yeah.
Then 10 years later, excuse me, this is the Bullets against let's see, the Bulls in 1996. So you got Calbert Cheney going and George Morrison on the reserves and Juwan Howard, Brent
Well,
Price.
that was my time with them because it was
Yeah,
it was Chris Webber, Juwan Howard,
yeah,
Calvert Cheney, Rod
yeah,
Strickland,
yeah,
Tim Legler,
yes.
and then when Kobe had first started, I went to the All-Star game in New York
Hmm.
and was able to you know shoot all of that stuff, and he and Shaq and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean the stuff
And
that
here,
we've been able to experience is just insane.
and here's all the press, premier parking. Because when I first started, you got the game and you got to tear it off, and then when I first started, there were no tickets for me because they didn't know how to deal with me. So I would just go. I'd go, after the chapel was done, I'd eat with the press, and then I'd go and sit in the seat. If someone came along and said, "Hey, that's my seat," I'd say, "Oh, sorry, sorry," and I'd move it, move down a few seats. And finally, around the seventh season, this guy came for 1 year, and we were talking, and he said, "Hey," he says, "where are your seats? Where do they have you sitting?" He was in the upper management. And I said, I have no seats. And he says, "Oh my goodness, how is that possible? How many years have you been doing this? You have no seats." He gave me two season tickets every year. And I get them every year. Now he gave me almost down on the court. And then every year thereafter, they started moving me back up to the nosebleed section.
Well, what was frustrating to me was there's only three of us at Base Productions, but we
Uh-huh.
had four season tickets. And
Yeah.
so I'd tell my parents, like, hey, come out to the game or whatever. And they'd go, oh, okay. So I'd get the tickets and have them, ready for them. And then I look up and they're not sitting in them. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're not showing up for the game. I got you tickets to the Capitals and the Bullets and the Wizards. What are you doing? We were busy. It's like, busy what? Like, go to the game.
Oh, man.
It's free. Just walk
Yeah.
in and have a hot dog.
Yeah.
But I looked up and the four seats would be empty and I'd be like, oh, come
Empty.
on.
Here's something signed by Wes Unseld and Bernard King, Harvey Grant, Steve
Oh, that's
Colbert.
great.
I can't make out the other signatures, but one of these banners.
Those are fantastic.
Uh,
Yeah, Wes was such a big personality. My
oh my
goodness.
goodness. Yeah.
He he would walk around and kind of just walk, around the court and hold court. To
Oh
be
yeah.
honest,
He,
I
he
mean,
and he's looking for
yeah,
anything, any problem. He's gonna call it out.
yeah. And Abe was great, but by the time I had been there, Abe was in charge of all of Washington sports and entertainment. So he was a busy guy. But I shot with Abe a lot, and those were very interesting things. But it was as he was getting on in years. So
He was very loyal to Wes. Wes had a golden parachute. That whatever he wanted, Abe would make it available to him.
yeah, and I couldn't get a real beat on him, to be honest with you. Listen, I was a kid, so he probably didn't care what I thought anyway. I mean, of course he didn't. Nobody cares what they probably don't care what I think now. But you know what I mean. So I'm just kind of in his ether because I have to be, I guess.
Yeah.
But he was a great guy, and those are great stories that you're able to tell about being able to talk to him and all those things. So what's coming up next?
Well, we're just, this whole textbook, Black History 365, is now, and all around the country, and we now have a team of 70 people, and we're just taking one school district after another. We're going to private schools, home schools, charter schools, Title I schools, and then we're finding that this engages all ages from K to gray. So we're
Mm-hmm.
finding faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, corporations. Right now, we're talking with McDonald's and some other corporations. So it's pretty exciting to. And we did a thing, speaking of the NBA, about 3 weeks ago. I don't know if I sent it to you, but I can. But we did a 50-minute presentation to all the employees of the NBA. They invited all 1,000+ employees from NBA, WNBA, G League, and NBA International. And we had Phil Chenier was our MC, so he kept throwing questions at Dr. Milton and myself, and man, that was a pretty great, incredible experience.
That's amazing. So how are you keeping this? How are you keeping it going? Like, what's your marketing strategy? Like, how is this working?
Well, it's a
Because
different,
if you've got 70 people, I mean, that's a big deal.
yeah, it's a different sales funnel than let's say if someone's selling cars or refrigerators or appliances or something like that. So it's a lot has to do with connecting with the right people in a school system. And then you have with CRT and all these other things, 1619, 1776, Black Lives Matter, the organization. You have a lot of controversy around this in school board meetings, at least at the time that we're taping this. And so what we've done is we've developed a whole approach so that people that are for or against a particular politically hot topic, we have something we call truth centrism, and we're solutionists. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
not getting into the war of definitions of words. We just tell the truth. And so anyone who's for or against something, we just basically say, hey, there's four things we want to invite students to. Number one, to become a critical thinker. Number two, a compassionate listener. Number three, a fact-based, respectful communicator. Number four, an action-oriented solutionist. I don't care if you're on the right extreme, right or left extreme. No one
Yeah.
can argue with those four things. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's our whole approach. We're not going to get into the war of definitions of words of what is are you anti-racist? Are you for CRT, against it? We just say, let all those battles go on. We're going to tell the truth about lynching and everything else. And we have a proprietary process called the elephant experience, where
Mm-hmm.
we talk about over 50 topics that people hate talking about, like reparations. Should we tear the statues down? The N word. Are we in a post-racial society after a black president for 2 terms? Uncle Tom, 3/5 of a human being, black people in the deadly dance with both American political party machines. And we have a process that we bring the teachers through, that we help them understand how to leave their stuff at the door so that it becomes truly a student-centered experience. And then we have the students. First class is not even about Black history. It's about them developing a code of conduct, rules of engagement made up of we will not statements. And then they use the talking stick. They create their own talking stick that I showed earlier in the show. And then now they're ready to talk about these tough topics in a way that is more a Socratic method, just like any debate. When you're in debate 101, you have to know both sides of the debate. So it pries people loose from their confirmation bias bubbles, gets them out of their echo chambers, so they see the other side. And now, hopefully, there can be more of an egalitarian, more of an eclectic view of different things rather than divisive, bringing people together.
Yeah, and I think I agree with um, the fact that life exists in a gray area, and so everybody can be on one side or the other, but they're never going to come together if they don't realize that there is a gray area, and we all need to understand where each other is coming from, and spend time in that area, not attacking.
Yeah.
You know.
It's like Augustine said back in the fourth century. He said, at least it's said that he said this, but he said that uh, he says, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. So it doesn't preclude
Mhm.
the need to be understood, doesn't even guarantee I will be understood, but it's like anything in investment. Like if you have low risk investment, low return, high risk investment, high return. I choose to live my life as a high investment person, a high risk person.
Mhm.
And sometimes I tell people in advance, if I say something stupid, you can attack my head but not my heart, and let's keep it moving. Let's talk through these things. And that's and part of working with the bullets and the wizards has helped to kind of burn out the intimidation factor. And coming from Canada, I have a white consciousness, but also I have a Canadian consciousness. So when people try to push buttons of guilt or shame, I sometimes just let them push, and other times I'll say in very small numbers, I just say, I just don't got the button you're trying to push. Sorry, but it's just let's be solutional about things rather than problemizing.
Well,
As
that happens in social media so often that you run into whoever, and they're upset, and they're just being reactionary, or they're just pushing their stuff on you or someone else, and I just leave the conversation. Like, I won't.
yeah,
I don't give it any credence, because I I get what you're doing. You're projecting whatever's happening to you, and you're not even projecting it necessarily on me. You're just saying things, and I don't have a lot of space in my cup to have that be filled. You know what I mean? Like, so if you have patience, I said that at work a lot. I said I've got a full thing of patience every morning when I get up. If you pour out half of that, that's going to mess up the rest of my day. Because
that's a
I've
great way
got
to put it. Great
I,
metaphor.
I've got to be patient a lot.
That's a
I've got
great
I've got
metaphor. Mm.
children, and I'm trying to keep everything going. If I'm spending a lot of my patience on you, then we're having an issue. But anyway,
Yeah. Well,
well,
the whole idea of, like Augustine said, seek to understand. It's just all about open-ended questions and just talking with people, and that I refuse to even talk about this on social media
yeah,
because only 7% of communication is what we say, the content. About 38% is how we say it, voice inflection, decibel level, and then
right,
55% is body language. And what we're
yeah,
missing on social media is voice inflection and body language. So we're only communicating about 5 to 7%. So if it's something small, a small area of potential impact on the relationship, or a small amount of complexity or level of importance, hey, all day long, let's do social media. But when it starts getting higher, now we have to either be on the phone or face to face. And so that's why we're talking about these high risk things. I want to be face to face with somebody.
yeah, for sure. Um, and I couldn't agree with that more, because people get very reactionary, like I said, to with something that's been written, or a text or something like that, but there's no context. Like, you just got a text and you read it wrong, or
Yeah,
you didn't understand what the person was saying, or it was sent quickly, and so it doesn't have any commas, or you know whatever it is, because it's just it's a text. And then when you read it, and then that person that has read it is now upset by what it is, you're like, no,
I didn't mean that.
I was trying to tell you that I loved you, for goodness sakes. How did you take that wrong? But, you never know. That's just the world we're living in, and we're doing the best we can.
That's right.
Thank you so much for doing this. And if
Oh
this is
man.
what we're going for, we nailed it.
Well, Pete, it's awful good just spending this time with you on the Zoom and on this doing this event, whatever you want to call it, a show.
Uh-huh.
Really appreciate you, and I still remember all those years of just seeing you going zipping this way, going that way. We're both doing that, But something solid happened in our friendship, in our relationship. That here we are. How many 40 some odd years, 50? I don't know, 45 years later.
Yeah.
Here or not 45, but three
25
decades later.
decades.
Yeah, 25 years later. Yeah, we're talking.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the stuff that you're doing, and it really is impactful. And so thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
likewise. Thanks a lot, man.
I'll call you after and check in with you.
Okay, man. Thanks.